The WWII rope trick was so strong it actually replaced steel. How wartime necessity, sparked a whole reinvention of rope. During the Second World War, supply chains collapsed just as fast as front lines shifted. Steel cables, essential for towing, rigging and building, were, often in short supply. Soldiers, engineers and even civilians on the home front had to improvise. Rope was one of the few materials you could find almost anywhere. Hemp, flax, jute or sisal fibres twisted into long cords. Normally, such rope wasn't strong enough for heavy loads, but in the chaos of war, necessity really forced innovation. Combat engineers and mechanics discovered that by rebraiding and hardening ordinary rope with resin or tar, they could create cords capable of pulling jeeps out of ditches or keeping bomb shelters anchored when the ground trembled. This knowledge spread quietly through field units and workshops, shared not through manuals but by word of mouth and experimentation. Rope became more than just a supply item. It was a weapon of adaptability. The soldiers called it field armour, because under the right hands it resisted shock, shrapnel and tearing like it had steel in its veins. The trick worked because of how tension and shock distribute through fibres. A single rope strand carries weight unevenly. One weak spot and it snaps. But when several ropes are tightly braided together, the load spreads across dozens of microfibres. The real magic happened when these braids were soaked in a natural resin or tar mixture. Tree sap, pine pitch, even melted paraffin or oil-soaked tar, all worked as binding agents. Once the rope was coated and cured in the sun, it hardened into a semi-rigid cable that resisted fraying, water damage and shock. This resin treatment essentially glued the fibres into a composite material, a primitive but effective ancestor of modern fiberglass or Kevlar composites. The resin sealed the rope from moisture, making it last longer in rain or snow, while its stiffness reduced whip and recoil when under strain. That meant fewer injuries from snapping lines, a major hazard in the field. For soldiers building makeshift bridges, lifting artillery or pulling damaged vehicles, this rope wasn't just handy, it was survival. When mechanics in wartime workshops began experimenting, they found results that astonished even the most skeptical officers. A regular hemp rope could handle maybe 1,000 pounds of pull before breaking. Braided and resin-treated, that same rope often tripled its load capacity. It wasn't steel, but it could haul a small truck without splitting apart. British commandos, for instance, carried short sections of toggle rope, simple cords that could be joined together for climbing, bridging or dragging supplies. Many soldiers, adapted that same principle, reinforcing their ropes with pitch or wax to extend their limits out in the field. Tests today, they show just how valid that method really was. A modern recreation using braided hemp cord and pine resin actually achieved some pretty remarkable results. Untreated hemp snapped under tension at roughly 500 kilograms of load, but the treated version, dried and cured for 2 days, held over 1,200 kilograms before it even started fraying. The hardened coating also improved abrasion resistance, preventing fibres from shredding when dragged across rocks or metal. In terms of shock absorption, the resin-bound braids flexed less but endured sudden jolts without snapping, proving their resilience under dynamic loads, the very kind faced in wartime towing or bombardment. Steel cable is strong but unforgiving. A sudden jerk can snap it or cause dangerous recoil. It's also heavy, hard to repair, and vulnerable to rust in wet, salty conditions. The improvised rope, by contrast, was flexible, easy to make from local materials, and light enough to carry in a rucksack. Soldiers could repair it on the spot, splice new sections, or recoat it with tar from a vehicle drum. It also had one unique advantage: shock absorption. The combination of fibre elasticity and resin stiffness acted like a spring dampener, dispersing energy through every strand. That meant fewer catastrophic breaks, even under sudden loads. In many cases, this armour rope lasted longer than expected, pulling not just vehicles but entire field bridges into position. For modern survivalists, this forgotten method is, well, a goldmine of practical wisdom. If you're ever stranded or short on gear, knowing how to strengthen rope using natural materials can make the difference between failure and rescue. To recreate it, start with natural fibre rope, hemp, jute or sisal. Braid 3 or more cords tightly to form a thicker line. Then mix a simple resin coating. Melt pine sap or pitch and combine it with a small amount of oil or wax to keep it flexible. Soak the braided rope in the mixture, let it drain, then hang it to cure for at least 24 hours. The result is a hardened, water-resistant cord with dramatically improved tensile strength. In modern tests, a similar method using epoxy resin or marine sealant achieved even higher performance. While synthetic ropes like nylon or paracord already outperform natural fibres, this method really shines when you have, just minimal supplies. It's especially useful in wilderness survival or disaster recovery, where natural fibres and heat sources are all you have, honestly. The rope can be used for hauling, shelter building, or even climbing, though always with caution and redundancy. The brilliance of the World War II rope trick isn't just in its practicality, it's in what it represents. It shows that the greatest resource on the battlefield or in survival is human ingenuity. These weren't factory engineers, but ordinary men and women making extraordinary tools from whatever they had. They understood that strength doesn't always come from heavy metal or advanced machines. For today's audience, especially those who love history or survival craft, this forgotten wartime hack bridges past and present. It reminds us that innovation often starts where resources end. In a world obsessed with high-tech solutions, the soldiers of the 1940s proved that simplicity, patience and craftsmanship could still outlast chaos. The unbreakable armour rope wasn't a myth. It was a survival tactic, a piece of quiet genius from an era defined by scarcity and danger. Whether you're into history, engineering, or prepping for the unexpected, there's something powerful in reviving these lost methods. Try it yourself. Experiment safely, document the process, and see how close you can get to wartime toughness using only basic materials. If you found this story fascinating and want more hidden survival knowledge from the world's forgotten war fronts, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share this video with a friend. There's a lot more history waiting to be uncoiled.